Hey everybody, this is Chris Schlarb with Big Ego. Today I'm just going to try to compare these two units. We've got a vintage Roland Dimension D and a modern Klark Teknik or Behringer, as you might say in Europe. Third Dimension, which is their clone. Basically these are bucket brigade chorus, stereo chorus slash widener slash spatializers. They're interesting units. On the used market, these vintage Rolands are kind of fetching a pretty penny at the moment. I think that happens a lot when modern clones come out. So anyway, my experience with the Klark Teknik and comparing the two of them has been kind of interesting. The decibel output from the Klark Teknik seems to be about 5 to 7 dB lower than the Dimension D. It also seems to be a little bit softer or weaker on the bass. Anyway, what we're listening to right now is the Roland Dimension D off. It's in bypass. I've got these set up as aux-ins, and we're only listening to the wet signal, so none of the dry signal at all. I'm going to bring it up a bit. This is just an instrumental mix from the new Psychic Temple record. It's a song called Why Should I Wait? I'll bring this up and then I'll switch in the vintage Dimension D. All right, now I'm going to bring down the Dimension D. We'll take that out. We'll bring in the Klark Teknik version. This is in bypass. And now, first position. Okay, we'll give two other quick examples here. The first being something I think you would probably use this unit for most commonly, and that would be like a backing vocal bus. So let's bring in these backing vocals. We're still listening to the Klark Teknik. I'm going to turn it in off. So this is just the original dry signal here.
Why should I wait for a moment that's never to come? Why should I wait for a moment that's never to come?
All right, and now let's hear the Roland Dimension D, first in bypass.
Why should I wait for a moment that's never to come? Why should I wait for a moment that's never to come? Why should I wait for a moment that's never to come? Why should I wait for a moment that's never to come?
Now I just switched over to the Klark Teknik.
Why should I wait for a moment that's never to come?
Dimension D.
Why come.
All right, and the last thing we'll try here, we'll put it on bass part. Let's take a look. Here we go. So this is off. Dimension D. And off. And let's switch this over. Now you can kind of hear, this is still an off, right? You can hear that there's just not as much bass. This is the great Mark Walton from Dream Syndicate on bass here. All right, now see if I can switch it back over to the Dimension D. You can kind of get a really quick, obvious comparison. So now we're back on the Dimension D. And I'll switch this back over to the Klark Teknik. And back to the Dimension D. Now full mix. Switching from the Dimension D now to the Klark Teknik. All right, I tried my best. Curious to know what you guys think. I've got my mind made up.